Rose Fights Back is the fourth episode of the fifth season of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Terry Hughes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a great episode. It does a really good job of highlighting age discrimination in the workplace, and unfortunately, it's still relevant today. There are plenty of Golden Girls episodes that are still relevant today, but there are some that they're more of a product of their time, and the messages and morals are not completely as relevant today, or they're maybe slightly different today. But unfortunately, I think it's fair to say that age discrimination in the workplace is something that still very much happens today. Maybe even more so because technology is aging people out of employment. Not all of the time, of course, but it is something that I'm seeing reports on here and there. So unfortunately, the episode is still very relevant today. So I will go through things chronologically, pretty much just focusing on Rose. We do have a subplot focusing on Sophia and the fact that she keeps bulk buying everything. She wanted to use, I think, adult diapers as stocking stuffers, and it's an interesting part of the narrative, I guess. And I have a few comments here and there, but most of my thoughts are on Rose. That being said, the intro, I'd say the first 1 or 2 minutes with Sophia is just laugh after laugh. Absolutely fantastic. Rose then gets a letter. They're all opening up their mail, and Rose has received a letter saying that Charlie's pension fund is no more because the company he worked for went bankrupt, and that included the pension. So she's not going to get a pension anymore. And I don't know anything. I barely know enough about UK pensions because it's terrifying. I don't know anything about pensions in the US. Is that still the case today? Could somebody's pension just disappear like that? I'd love to know, because that's absolutely terrifying if that's true. And even if it's not true now, definitely terrifying at the time. And they're all around the table discussing things. They're discussing eventually how companies don't like to hire older people, and that introduces the main theme of the episode. Sophia then, she asks Dorothy for more money so she can go and bulk buy some more things. And Dorothy asks her why she's doing this. So Sophia decides to try and explain this to her. And she says, let's say you buy 20 cases of sardines, to which Dorothy responds, this better be just an example. And Sophia says, of course. And then she talks for a few more sentences, and then Blanche comes in the room and says, what in the hell are all those sardines doing in the kitchen? I wasn't expecting that. I genuinely believed Sophia when she said that this was just an example, so I rather enjoyed that quite a lot. Rose then comes in. She'd tried to get jobs. It didn't work. She was apparently too old for the assistant manager job in a pet store, and what I did think was interesting about this, and I'd love to know if this is the case in the States still, but in the UK, certainly now, somebody could absolutely not say, sorry, you're too old for this job. Unless it's a job where age is relevant, like, I don't know, a modelling photo shoot or something for children's wear. That's an extreme example, but generally speaking, because of employment law, you're not allowed to say, no, you can't have this job because you're too old. If anybody can confirm if that's also the same in the States now, but apparently it definitely wasn't at the time, because these people are just saying to her, no, you're too old for this job. And that's awful. That's really awful. Also, how can you be too old for an assistant manager position? What does that even mean? And Rose then tells this story about a bag lady who she sees with her trolley of belongings, and she realised that she's the same age as her. And I love this bit, she used to think that this woman must have just been stupid to get to that point in her life, not to manage her money properly or to get into difficult situations of her own making. But Rose now realises that it can happen to anybody at any point. Hard times can happen for all of us, no matter how hard we work, how careful we are with our finances, how much we financially plan. It doesn't matter. Obviously, it's great to do all of that, and everybody should do that, but even with that in mind, something can happen and everything can crumble, and it has nothing to do with how well you've planned or how safe and sensible you've been. And Rose had to fall on her hard time to realise that, and I think that was really eye-opening and a really great takeaway for this episode. There are a lot of great takeaways here, but just highlighting the fact that without warning, somebody could lose their income and potentially become homeless, and also struggle to get employment because of discrimination. And it's not necessarily that person's fault. And I think that was a really, really important point to raise. And I think they did a really good job with that. Rose is then going down to the TV station to talk with a character called Enrique, played by Chick Vennera. And he's doing a segment on age discrimination. And if her case is interesting enough, they will air her age discrimination case. And while she's there, she meets Beth Grant's character, Terry. Nothing that interesting about the character, but I like Beth Grant. And she says, also, I'm aware that you have a production assistant job. Could I apply for it? And Enrique says that she's too old for the job. While planning an age discrimination case, he age discriminated her. And it's disgusting, but she argues her case, and he gives her some razors to try, and if she can put together a decent review and report about these products, then maybe she can have a chance at doing this job. And she takes them home and everybody tries them, and off she goes. And sometime later she comes back and she got the job. She got the production assistant job. And there are two great things about this. One, that's absolutely fantastic for Rose, and it shows that actually she wasn't too old for the job. Age doesn't necessarily equate lower ability. Yes, obviously, cognitive abilities can decline with age, but it's not like you turn a certain age and suddenly your brain starts to not work the way it used to. Give that person a chance. Don't ever turn somebody away for no reason other than you're being discriminatory. And Rose got a chance. And she showed that she can do it. And I thought it was a really beautiful moment and a really lovely message. And the other reason I love this is because I'm quite keen to see what they do with this going forward. It could be that we never hear about the job again. But it could be that we get a lot more of this within different storylines. And I'm looking forward to finding out. We then end the episode with Sophia making a celebratory meal of sardine casserole with an oatmeal cookie crust, because she had a lot of sardines and a lot of oatmeal cookies. So a nice fun way to end things. Ultimately a lovely episode for Rose. Some great messages about age discrimination, about how anybody can fall on hard times at any point and it's not necessarily their own fault. And I think the episode is, unfortunately, just as relevant today as it was back at the time. As I said, in the UK, you're not allowed to just say, no, you're too old for this job, in pretty much every situation. There may be some exceptions where the age is relevant, is necessary. But generally, we do have very good employment law on that front to stop discrimination. Of course, that's not to stop an employer from turning you away because you're too old, but they're not allowed to say that. They're not allowed to tell you that that's why. And I'd be very keen to know if that's the case in the States as well, or if, as Rose experienced, is it still the same? And people can't just say, no, you're too old, go away. I really hope that's not the case, but unfortunately, at the very least, it was once upon a time. And I think the episode really helps to highlight the importance of not discriminating based on age or on anything, of course, and also not judging people. Because Rose did kind of judge that bag lady, as she called her, and then only when she fell on her own hard time did she realise it can happen to anybody. So great messages, really strong episode. Ultimately, loved the ending as well. So all things considered, Rose Fights Back is pretty brilliant.